Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our reading of Tafseer Saudi, and we are in Surah Al-Baqarah 254. So 254. Let's begin. Bismillah. O you who believe, spend from that which we have provided for you, before the day comes when there will be no bargaining, no friendship, and no intercession. It is the disbelievers who are the wrongdoers. Now the scholar goes into his view. By his kindness towards his slaves, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands them to give some of that which He has provided them with, in the form of obligatory or recommended charity, so that it may be stored up as abundant reward for a day when those who strive hard will need every last little good deed. Now here, I like how he worded that, because every little last deed. It's often overlooked how many good things you can do for yourself and for others, for your community. Just picking up garbage, think about that. That goes a long way. And when there will be no room for bargaining, and if a person were to offer an earth full of gold to ransom himself from punishment on the day of resurrection, it would not be accepted from him. Now here, when I read that, it makes me think of how corrupt politicians, musicians, evildoers in general, they can pay their way out of earthly justice. In the atheist worldview, you simply need to pay your way out of justice. And you only need to live in a way that fears getting caught, because without God, everything is permissible. You have no concept of getting punished in the afterlife. If you just outrun the law, then you're fine. But here we see, no. You can have all this money, you can be Pablo Escobar type of rich, but that's not going to help you at all in the least. Rather, it's your actions, not your currency, that will save you. And no friend, no status, and no intercession will benefit him. That is the day on which the followers of falsehood will be losers, and the wrongdoers will be disgraced. They are the ones who acted inappropriately, failing to fulfill their obligations towards Allah and towards His slaves, and who transgress the limits of what is permissible, seeking that which is forbidden. The worst type of wrongdoing is disbelief in Allah. So the worst type of wrongdoing is the disbelief in Allah. So a disbeliever does something crazy, lighting themselves on fire, and you think they're going to get into paradise because of that. Examine what was just said here. Right? The worst type of wrongdoing is disbelief in Allah. People should study. Who is the only one who should be worshipped? But the disbeliever directed his worship to a created being like himself. You see this a lot with the atheists and Matt Dillahunty, Jordan Peterson, and these types of atheistic gurus that pop up, or agnostic gurus. Hence Allah Azza says, it is the disbelievers who are the wrongdoers. That is, they are the ones who are proven to be wrongdoers in the fullest sense of the word. As Allah Azza says elsewhere, for associating others in worship with Him is indeed grievous wrongdoing. Luqman 31:13. So notice how they take themselves as sort of their mini deity. So the new religion would be the white-robed, aka lab coats of the scientific class. And their methodology of assuming that the scientific method will always work and is not corruptible and can't be falsified. You have to look at how trust the experts turned into a hammer upon those who decided to not submit to their expertise, which they later changed. And those who pay them are the ones who nudge them to be like, you better make the results come out this way, or you're not getting the funding for your project, or you're going to be fired, or we'll ruin you, or something like that. So those types of atheistic lab coats selling themselves for the almighty dollar, well, that money, even if it was an earthful, it won't be able to ransom them from the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So chasing money, materialism, is going to get you in trouble. That doesn't mean you become a beggar, because as we saw in Riyadh Salihin Volume 1, Muslims are not supposed to be these consistent slob beggars who don't want to work. The hand that gives is better than the hand that receives. Those hadiths were quite clear. Okay? Even if you have to gather firewood to go sell it, that's preferable, right? So, just know that committing evil will not help you in that sense. What people do for money, and being a hoarder, is not good. So, obligatory and recommended charity. Spend on what is good. So this really prompts you to help others, not to just hoard it. So if someone's doing good, you like what they do, help them out. You'll get rewarded for that. So you give $10 here, $20 there, it's getting amplified for you on Judgment Day. Don't be too much of a penny pincher. Just make sure it goes where you want it to go. Sadaqah Jariyah, a continuous charity that lives on in a sense after you die. Water, knowledge, things like that. It's very important. Disbeliever directed his worship to a created being like himself. So, the lab coat class is the biggest for me, because they often are just as corrupt as any other group, and they are the priest class of the atheists. Just look how some OBGYNs and some women suffer heavily under the lab coat class. Whereas now I see more women choosing home births just so that they can avoid the abuse of the hospital industry. So they choose water birth, something more spiritual in that sense, being home, rather than going through this sort of secular, atheistic, mind-numbing machine that is a hospital birth, with lots of interventions and their eagerness to do C-sections on women instead of being patient because they gotta get that hospital bed, going insurance companies not wanting to cover home births. You can see how the worshipping in that system, that the doctor knows all, and then you look at the malpractice committed by so many, and how certain medical schools have a particular philosophy and curriculum. Now we see that they have worshipped their own minds and their arrogance, and they don't really feel, some of them, that they'll be accountable for what they did, and that they'll be accountable for the system they participated in. How many of them pushed pills and were paid by Big Pharma just so they could get some money, right? Well, that won't be able to ransom them from the consequences of their actions. Let me know what you think. I'm sure you have other ideas as well, but Ramadan is coming up, so spend from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided for you, and do some good deeds with it. Take care.